the passage of time, we have shared your joy at the birth of your children, and proudly we have watched them grow. We've taken care of your healthcare needs during the good times and the not so good. Your parents and grandparents have depended upon us. Together we have shared the struggles and the wonders of life. At Oktibbeha County Hospital, we are celebrating 30 years of being your lifelong choice in healthcare.
Mr. Attorney, how are you tonight? First item on our agenda is the approval of the official agenda. And we have some consent items, I believe. Let's turn that over to Alderman McLaurin.
Let's see, I've got it. Here it is. Mr. Mayor and Board, for your consideration tonight, a number of items that might be placed on a consent agenda. Also, a number of items that it is recommended that they be removed from tonight's agenda. So members of the audience might also want to listen to this. This might alter whether you stay or do not stay for any particular period of time. Thank you. Page 3. The item under Mayor's Business is recommended for removal from the agenda.
I think your pages may be a little different than the audience pages as well as ours.
Okay, well then I will call it out. I'm looking at a different copy. I'll call it out by Roman numeral and so forth. We're on Roman numeral 9, Mayor's Business, Roman numeral 9. The single item, the A item under that Roman numeral is recommended for removal from the agenda.
Alderman McLaurin, I actually would like to at least talk about and discuss that item, so would that be acceptable?
Certainly, Alderman Corey, if you want to not remove that from the agenda. Is that your pleasure?
Yes.
All right, Alderman Corey wants to leave that on the agenda.
Punch me when we get to it, because I've got it blocked out. Go ahead.
All right. Under Roman numeral 10, item B, the stormwater control ordinance. There will be the public hearing and receipt of comments on the stormwater control ordinance, but that item will not be considered tonight for approval. Does everyone understand that? We will hold the public hearing on that for whatever comments people would like to make, but the item will not at tonight's meeting be considered for approval. Item C under Roman numeral 10, Board Business, that is recommended for movement to the consent agenda. Item F under Roman numeral 10, movement to the consent agenda.
Alderman McLaurin, since we're at that point in the agenda, I'd also like to look at the reinstatement of item G.
Item G, Alderman Corey, that had been stricken from the agenda. Mm-hmm. Alderman Corey would like to reinstate that item on the agenda. Okay? So I'll punch you there too.
You have it blocked out.
Roman numeral 11, airport business. All Roman numeral 11, item A, all 4 items, 1, 2, 3, 4, under airport business, removed to consent agenda. 1, 2, 3, 4 to consent agenda. The B item under Roman numeral 11, building codes, items 1 and 7 to the consent agenda. Items 1 and 7 to the consent agenda. Now, with regard to item 2, and everybody listen carefully, there may be individuals here to talk or offer comments on that particular item. Item 2 is recommended, it is recommended that that item be tabled, not considered tonight, tabled for some future consideration. Dr. Scarborough, did you hear that?
No,
Exactly.
I didn't hear that.
We are tabling item 2.
Item 2.
Are you not paying attention?
Yes,
No.
Item 2 under
Building and codes,
building and codes, which means what?
which means it will not be considered tonight and may be removed from the table at some future meeting.
How will I know when it comes up again?
Read the paper.
Eternal vigilance. We will try to notify you about that, certainly. Item E, there is the feeling that consideration of that item is premature at this particular point in time.
Go ahead with your,
The city has no desire to be drug into litigation in any form, shape, or fashion if litigation is continued on this item. Item E, the electric department. Number 1, move to consent. Item G, fire department, number 1 and 2, move to consent. Item I, police department, number 1, move to consent. Item J, public services, items 1 and 2 dealing with acceptance of low bids, move to consent. So we would recommend all those changes on the agenda for your consideration, noting the 2 additional items added back by Alderman Corey.
Move approval. Second.
motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Okay, next item is approval of board Alderman's minutes for the meeting of June the 17th.
Mayor Board, move approval of June 17th, 2008 minutes.
Second.
Motion, second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Brings us down to announcements. On August the 23rd, we'll have the Travis Outlaw Day will be held and at McKee Park from 10 in the morning till 3 in the afternoon, and the public is welcome to attend. We'd like to thank Timothy Rice for the Eagle Scout project in which he included the painting of the fire hydrants around Main Street there in town. Are you here tonight, Tim? Yes. Stand up so everybody see you. I think I saw you out there painting one of them. Yeah. But, did you see me drive by and look at you?
Did it scare you, Timothy?
No.
Let's thank Timothy for
Yeah.
doing this.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Ask them to stand up and tell them who they are.
We have Evan McBurney, Joy Bell, Nick Elder, Jack McBurney, Davis B., Ethan Follett, and Chris Kelly.
Excellent. Let's
Let's
give these
thank
folks
these.
a hand. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Mayor,
Yes,
may I be recognized?
sure.
Just wanted to take a moment because we moved one of our items, the Lowe's grant, to the consent agenda. So I wanted to give proper credit for this where it was due with Patrick Nordine, who's in the audience today. He's one of the people that's really helping to spearhead this. It promises to be really promising, beautiful addition to the Greensboro area. Patrick, you want to say anything regarding this? Before, I didn't know if you had any statements prepared.
Actually, I was hoping to speak before Leah, if that's possible, but I can go now if that's what she'd like.
Well, it's already been moved to consent. We're not even gonna,
You know,
no, but you can say, take a few minutes in citizen comment as soon as I get there, all right? And that'll work. Okay.
Okay.
And that, we come to that segment part of our program in which we allow this particular segment for citizens who have issues or would like to say something, have the right to spend 3 minutes, no more than 3 minutes, or comments on anything they wish to, what, excuse me,
Okay.
you're not loud enough now.
Sorry about that.
All right. My comments are from the Sturgis Bike Rally we had this weekend, and the staff and the board members appreciate the businesses in Starkville that put up welcome bikers, gave them discounts and all like that. That's one comment. Another comment is to Lynn and Doug for getting Highway 12 cleaned up. It's very clean on all the rocks and debris and everything, looked very well. And the last comment is to Chief Lindley and his officers for the well-done job that they performed of blocking all the intersections. We didn't have any problem at all coming through Starkville. So that was excellent. Thank you, Chief.
Okay, we're now in the citizens' comment section of our program. Any citizen would like to come up and make a comment?
And good evening to the mayor and board, and Vice Mayor Perkins, and Alvin Turner from Ward 7. The citizens, we just want to hope that our tax money finally get us something to look at. We need desperate a light place. We desperately need a police station. We would definitely like to see our tax money where we can see it. And the building on Stark Road is getting a lot of attention, and the people do not know what that is.
Next.
Mr. Mayor and Board of Alderman, what I've got here is a piece of paper with an image of what and where this Greensboro Center Park will go. I only printed out 7. I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor.
You better hope I don't veto it.
Let me shake.
You're a community visionary, so I assume that you'd already kind of understand what we're doing. Okay, what you're looking at is the southeast corner of the Greensboro Center, which is where I propose that a community garden park be constructed. I've talked to most of the stakeholders in this area. I've talked to Judy Cooey, the superintendent of public schools. Talked to Bob Fuller, the principal of Armstrong Middle School. Talked to the Starkville Central Neighborhood Foundation, and also talked to several of the residents in that area, and everybody has expressed enthusiasm about this project. What I have envisioned is a small garden park that would have picnic tables, chess tables where people could come out and play chess on a Saturday afternoon, Sunday afternoon. And this park would benefit the neighborhood, but it would also benefit the school district. It would also benefit the different groups that use the Greensboro Center. I know that it's used as a church on Sundays. It's used for pageants and a bunch of other civic projects. I've also spoken to Pete Melby about maybe getting some landscape architecture students together to design what this park would look like. And he expressed that he's enthusiastic about this project. He'd like to see that we put indigenous plants in this area to where we have sustainability. I've talked to Caleb Crawford, the director of the architecture program, about getting architecture students to design the benches and the tables for this area, and I think we can get them on board. I've also talked to Allison Pearson, who's in charge of the Day One Leadership Program, And we've already set up a day one project for the fall of 2009, whereby we would get students to work on this project as well as some funding from the university. And this goes in line with the Lowe's grant that Leah has suggested that we apply for. If we can get anywhere from, what, $5,000 to $25,000 for this park, I think it does does wonders for that neighborhood and the people that it would serve in that neighborhood.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Leah, your program is on consent, so it's gone through. Who else would like to speak this time?
Mr. Mayor, I would. Mr. Mayor, Alderman, Mr. Favor, I want to thank y'all for recognizing these scouts from Troop 45. This troop's been in service to this community since they were chartered first in April of 1952. When you drive down the street and you see these little blue markers, these reflective markers, they indicate there's a fire hydrant to that side of the center line. Troop 45 put those there a couple of years ago with the help of the fire department. This time we painted 79 fire hydrants. And 79 fire hydrants doesn't cover a lot of territory. But they painted, I say we, these young men painted 79 fire hydrants, would like to do more in the future. We have another project coming up toward the end of September. I've spoken to Chief Lindley about it briefly. In 1958, our troop did a public service project where we did a traffic survey downtown. And we found records of it in the old Starkville News. It says exactly what intersections were done, what hours of the day. We would like to recreate that traffic survey 50 years later, a half-century anniversary of it, and add to it who's talking on the cell phone, who's wearing seatbelts. If that would be okay with all of them.
I think that'd be fine.
And we will get this done, then we will present a report to Chief Lindley, and he can let y'all know how it came out. But what I really want to tell you is how wonderful it is to have a fire department with somebody like Mr. Mann, who helps out, who offers suggestions, help, support, and when we need a project, he's got a list of things that need to be done. And we are glad to have him to work with. You couldn't ask for anybody any better. Now, keeping with scout law being helpful, our scouts are going to lead so that the people standing can have seats. Thank y'all.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to take a brief moment? Okay, we'll move on. First public appearance is from the Parks and their report.
Mr. Mayor, Board, Mr. Favor. First, I'd like to express Mr. Moreland's apologies. He was supposed to be here to put this presentation on, but he had to go to the doctor today. I don't know the details, and he called me and said he couldn't make it, but he wanted to apologize for his absence tonight. So I'm going to give it, it's going to be a brief report on the things that have occurred in the last quarter and what we've had at the park, what we've accomplished and attempted to accomplish. Referring to the handout that you had in your packet, you will see that in this past quarter, which is historically one of our busiest quarters because it's the spring and summer, and you'll see a long list of tournaments that we had there and events that we've had throughout the last quarter, 3 in April, 7 in May, 4 in June. So we've been relatively busy every single weekend and in between with things, soccer tournaments and softball tournaments, but we've also had things like the Fun Day in the Park at J.L. King, which was very successful and well attended even though it rained most of the day. And things like the Cancer Relay for Life, which was a record-setting attendance this year. Once again, threatening rain, but we still had a very good turnout for that, made a lot of money. And our youth tennis camp, you'll notice that it was the biggest one we ever had. Much like everything else in Starkville, our numbers grow and continue to grow in most every program we have. Technically, the fireworks display didn't come in the quarter, but it was shortly thereafter, and even though it rained 3 times on the 4th of July preceding those fireworks, it was a very well-received display, and we got lots of comments about it, and it was not the biggest crowd we ever had, but the rain was partially to blame, but it was a good crowd out there for that show. And So we were very busy, as we should be at that time of year in April, and May and June. We have various things that bring lots of teams in, lots of people into town, and they were all pretty successful. Next thing on the list there, we're going to give you a summary on our multi-purpose building. Construction was originally scheduled to be completed for Christmas of this year, but it is a couple of weeks behind schedule now according to the architects. Mainly that was because of materials. They had a trouble getting some of their materials delivered, and then some of the materials that came weren't the right ones. They had to get those again. So they're a little bit behind. They're projecting that we're going to open in January 2009, but I would not be shocked or a bit surprised if it was possibly February or maybe even early March, because still a lot of detail work to be done on the inside, even though it looks like it's coming along really nicely on the outside. As we all know, and we've heard many times, the building will have the basketball courts, the racquetball courts, conference rooms, meeting rooms, a stage, administrative offices, the jogging track, walking track, all that kind of stuff. It's going to be truly a multi-purpose building. It'll be meetings, multiple meetings could be held in it at the same time. You can have conference in there, you can have plays in there. It's going to be a nice facility. The contractor told us that he is approximately 68% complete with the project. We've, of the $5.4 million that we were bonded for that project, we've paid in $3,607,000 at this time. And hopefully it'll be done by at least February. Upcoming projects and existing projects that we had during the last quarter. We painted the J.L. King basketball court in Starkville High colors, black and gold. We will be painting the Gillespie Street court soon in Portland Trailblazer colors. We had a little trouble getting that color matched, is why we're a little behind on that. And we give a special thanks to Travis Outlaw and his family, Marquita and John, who provided the funds to have those basketball courts painted. And otherwise, at the Gillespie Street Center, we had a lot of projects going on there within the last quarter, painting the exterior, the interior. We put in new landscaping, new countertops, interior doors. We did minor renovations in the restrooms, and that's still a continuing project. We did, if you may have noticed, our fence was took out. If you've been by there and saw the fence laying in the grass, we had a minor accident down there, which was none of us. It was a pedestrian accident that.
Clark,
Yes.
left out the best part.
I was leaving. I didn't. Do you want me to tell the best part? I don't know.
During a defensive driving course.
It was during a defensive driving course at the Gillespie Street Center that our fence was taken out. But anyway, insurance backed us up a little bit on getting that cleaned up and fixed, but it has been picked up and cut, and a fence will be put in there shortly. This summer, when we had our summer help, had our college boys come in, they painted our restrooms at the Sportsplex, at the adult towers and the youth towers, and made quite a difference in cleaning up and painting. Paint makes a great difference. And we plan on doing the soccer restrooms next and then getting to McKee and the other places. But quite naturally, over at McKee, that park is 25, 30 years old now. The ideal thing is going to be, soon we're going to have to replace those restrooms because they've just served their time. But for now, we're cleaning them the best we can. We're going to put a paint job on them. We're going to do what we can for now. We thank the junior auxiliary ladies who came out to Moncrief Pavilion within the last 2 weeks, painted our pavilion for us, cleaned up around the pavilion, dressed it up a little bit, and they are quite helpful. This is not their first project they've done for us. They've done a few projects for us, and we thank them for their efforts. We took the old pavilion at the top of the hill at J.L. King Park, which was pretty much an eyesore, with the insulation hanging down, and it was just a mess up there. We cleaned it up. We took down the insulation. We cut down the old lighting. We painted it. We put in 3 picnic tables, put some garbage cans up there, and now we use it as another pavilion over there at J.L. King, and it works pretty well. It's a nice big area. And our summer help helped us clean up the entranceway to McKee. We umbrellaed all the fences, all the trees, and we got all the leaves out of the way, and we made a very nicer entrance to McKee with. Thankful to that summer help that we got, and they were over there to work on those projects that we can't do because we're always cutting grass, lining fields, and the things that refer to this long list of tournaments and events that we have at the park. Also, you'll note that in your packet, there was a pool report that shows you a graph and gives you a little outline of the pool attendance for this past quarter, which is the only time it's practically open. And you'll see how the numbers went at McKee and J.L. King during that time. And you also should have an attachment in there for the report on the 2% money, how it's coming and where it is and how it's compared to previous years. And as you will easily notice, it's increasing all the time. There's some pictures. They're not very great pictures. They show you some walls that aren't finished and the interior of the building and the stairs that go to the track. But we thought we'd throw them in there just to show you that progress is being made, even though we're slightly behind schedule. And we're entering the fall now, and we'll be doing soccer and co-rec softball and flag football. Those registrations are underway. And we even have 2 USSSA baseball tournaments on the schedule for the fall. So we continue to have tournaments, we continue to have events, and we have 2 major soccer tournaments coming. So it's business as usual, and the past quarter was, in fact, our busy season, and it's reflective in those tournaments we held and the attendances we had out there. And otherwise, it's as it always has been. We went through the rough spot with the separation of the finances and getting things on track to make all that work, and we're pretty close to that right now. Anybody has any questions about the numbers or the tournaments or the pool or anything relating to our new building, I'll be happy to try to answer them for you. It's pretty simple. It is what it is.
Are y'all going to bid to host I forgot which one it is, one of the baseball tournaments? I remember y'all were talking about.
We are gonna make an attempt next summer to bid on hosting one of the Dizzy Dean state tournaments. Those tournaments are only available by bid, and we're going to put one in and see if we can get that back. We had those. We used to have one every year about 5 or 6 years ago, and Tunica made a big package deal to Dizzy Dean, which was an unbelievable amount of money, casino funded, and took those tournaments for a while. But they're going to start letting a couple of them get back and not have them all at the same spot anymore. So we're making a bid on that next year. We've been told by ASA, the adult tournament of the state, that they give their tournaments out as they wish, except for the regionals and the nationals that you have to bid on. But we've been assured by them that we will at least get one tournament every single year, which we have had for the last 5 years in a row, because in their words, because our facilities are as good as anybody's. It's a fine facility, and they're well accepted in Starkville and the Starkville area. And we had the state C tournament this year. Last year we had the D. And depending on which tournament you get depends upon the numbers. And we've had as many as 16 and as many as 32 in for that tournament. But if we land that Dizzy Dean tournament, that'll be for a whole week. And that'll be 16, 18 teams from all over the state, or at least the North State if we get that. And that'll be well attended because the youth tournaments are the ones that bring in the numbers. Adults usually come and play. They might eat at your restaurant, get some gas, but they're going home. But when the youth come, they come with grandma, grandpa, mom, dad, brother, sister, and they're here for a week. So we're real hopeful we'll get that tournament. Any other questions?
On your J.L. King pool,
Yes, sir.
was it closed for some of that period? Was it 0 attendance?
No, sir. Unfortunately, both pools tend to start out when the summer starts, we put up big numbers. Everybody goes to the pools. as the year goes on, Moncrief Pool will plane out and stay at a pretty reasonable number. J.L. King tends to taper off. It just doesn't get as well attended as the summer goes on, and there are days when we have very few or little there. But having said that, it does present us with a good alternative. You'll see in those numbers, you'll see spikes, where sometimes it'll spike up to 85 or 100 or whatever along those low lines. And that's because every single time we get a call from the Boys Ranch or the Girl Scouts or Boy Scouts or from the Brick Fire or any organization that wants to bring a busload or two of people to the park, to the pool, we send them over to J.L. King because we know they have room over there. They can take it. So it's kind of even though it's not a good thing, there is a plus factor there for us when we can, and that's happened several times if you look at those spiked numbers. But it just doesn't get the attendance that Moncrief does.
Are there any other questions? Thank you.
Thank y'all.
This brings us to public hearings, and would be the first public hearing of the proposed budget and the possible tax levy increase. Matt, I'll turn that over to you.
Okay, just a couple comments about the process. The municipal budget is based on a fiscal year that starts October 1 through September 30th. And so that's why we're talking about the budget now as opposed to a calendar year. Tonight, we're going to have our first public hearing, and this is where we typically get public priorities. That's where we start to hear those. But tonight, we also want to introduce a comprehensive infrastructure discussion that our engineer will talk about here in a minute. At our next meeting, the September 2nd board meeting, we'll have our second public hearing to talk about the budget as well as a possible tax levy increase. And that's where there's more of a reaction time. We've taken what you've said from a priority standpoint and incorporated that into the budget. And then at a later meeting, around the September 15th timeframe, that's when we consider the budget for adoption. So we're still very early in this process, but we do have several things to share with you about where we are today. We do have a draft budget that is balanced. It represents a $14.74 million general fund budget for the city of Starkville. That, on the revenue side, shows our sales tax is estimated to go up about 2% this year. In previous years, we've seen 3%, 4%, 5% increases, but we wanted to use a conservative number this year given the national economy and what could happen in Starkville. Ad valorem, though, is down a little less than 2%. You may have read in the newspaper that a local bank made some adjustments on their balance sheet that has affected the ad valorem taxes that we're expecting. And so even though we've seen tremendous growth in the community with new buildings, new houses, et cetera, that was offset by this accounting change at that level. And we typically see ad valorem increase 5-10% here in the city because of that tremendous growth I just mentioned. So this is a challenge that we were faced with this year. And on the expense side, we have state mandated increases in retirement as well as workman's comp insurance. And then what you see at the gas pumps, we of course see at the city. We just drive more miles. So we had some expense issues that we needed to work through. And so working with the department heads and the mayor and the CAO, the department heads were able to reduce their operations budgets by an additional 1% from what they worked with last year. And that is not easy to do, but they were able to come to the table with that so that we could present a balanced budget as part of this first draft. There are not cost of living increases available to our employees in this draft budget. There are no new personnel and nor are there new vehicles. So this is a lean budget that reflects that decrease in the ad valorem and some very conservative numbers that we're using going into some murky national economic times. We wanted to come forward with a budget that was as conservative as possible at this point. We also need to talk a little bit about infrastructure because this draft balanced budget has a little over $1 million in there for infrastructure, and that sounds like a lot of money. However, half of that is for debt service for previous maintenance projects that we've done. And so we have 500,000 in for new maintenance projects, but as we'll hear from Edward here shortly, that does not come near what we need to spend for a community of our size. So that's all of the general comments that I had about where we are as part of this process. At our next public hearing, we'll have a full presentation where we break down each of the spending categories so that we can all see that. But we wanted to give you a quick introduction and let you know that where we are and what we're considering. And if Edward will talk about infrastructure, that's a great segue.
I got a brief presentation here and try to tell you how we arrived at this budget. See that? Should I dim the lights? We'll just go ahead then. I was asked to put together a budget on what it would take to maintain our existing streets as is. And before I started on that, I took a look a little bit about what we've done in the past. This is what we've done in the last 10 years to the best of our recollection. And some of those, like 2005, we did some work, but most of that was started in 2004. So we feel good that in the last 10 years we've done about 50 miles worth of maintenance work, and that's an average of about 5 miles per year. This is how much we've got here in the city. We have a total of 108 total miles of city-maintained roadways. That does not include nearly 23 miles of roadways that are maintained by Mississippi Department of Transportation. So in developing an overall comprehensive maintenance budget, what I did is tried to categorize our roads into 4 different types: arterial, major collectors, minor collectors, and local. Of course, you can throw out arterials because we're not maintaining those. And what we did is try to assign a maintenance schedule for each of these different types of roadways. Now, no traffic studies were performed on these roads, so again, this is just for budgetary purposes. Some of these roads, after we do a comprehensive roadway evaluation, may need to go up to the next category or could go down. But again, this is not based on a study. It's just based on what we perceive is the usage and strictly for budgetary purposes. So again, a total of 131 miles in the city, 108 of them are maintained. We're responsible for maintaining. These are some definitions of the different types of roads. And ideally, we would have traffic counts associated with each of these different types of roadways. We don't have the capabilities of doing that right now, nor have had the time to perform it. So in the future, that will be the goal. But arterial, think about the new bypass and Highway 12 and 82. The major and minor collectors are gathering the vehicles from residential subdivisions and carrying them to the business centers and the arterials. And then the local roads are primarily the subdivision roads, dead-end streets, and that type of thing. So we had to make some assumptions on our maintenance schedule, as I indicated. The more heavily traveled roads tend to require more maintenance, so we assign them a shorter period of repaving, and this is what we came up with. Some roads, I mean, there's a lot of variables in there, but we feel pretty good about this. One thing that is nobody knows about is the cost of asphalt. The last roadways that we improved, we pay $91 a ton for asphalt. Could go up, could go down. I don't think anybody knows. But this plan was based on an assumption that asphalt costs would be $100 a ton.
And before you go past that, Would you just point out what some of the major collector roads are? What are the, just the names, because that's what
Right.
we take away from this. South
Okay.
Montgomery is,
Right, and I should note, I've been posted a map of each type over on the wall, which will include what we've done the last 10 years, and also the roadway classification. But for example, the yellow is considered a major collector, Lynn Lane, South Montgomery, Old West Point Road. Those are some examples. Some minor collectors may be Gillespie Street. I'm trying to look up there. Portions of Louisville Street, past Academy Road, for example. And the locals, again, are mainly in residential subdivisions or roads that don't see a lot of kind of cut-through traffic, if you will. Does that answer? So with those numbers, we plan to with the cost of asphalt and that maintenance based on our roadways and that classification, we would repave approximately 8 miles per year at a cost of $1.4 million. Adding in there some improvements to our sidewalks and as well as making some of them more ADA accessible at a cost of $50,000 per year, and then some drainage improvements at a cost of $100,000. Don't have any past history on the drainage improvement number. We just took that so we would have some money available to do drainage improvement and enhancement projects for a total of $1.6 million. Again, this is estimated in a budget, something that could serve as a goal and a target to shoot for, and look at kind of maintaining the streets from a long-term comprehensive standpoint. And that's how I came about that. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to talk. And again, feel free to take a look at the maps during the break.
Ed, would you also be willing to put that on the city website for anyone who
Sure.
wants to download and look at it?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
And your proposal is that we need that per year for the next 10 years in order to get to a point of road.
Well, I think that would be the goal perpetually, because even after you get past 10 years, you're going to get to the point where the roads you did in year one are ready for maintenance again. So, and I know that this number will probably tend to increase over time due to the rising cost of construction.
You did not calculate an increase, is
No,
that correct?
that is correct.
That's as if we did all the roads this year.
That's correct.
10 years from now, it may be twice as much to maintain.
Very well could be with the fluctuations in asphalt.
And I believe, Matt, in the budget proposal, in order to get to this 1.6 million, all we have is about $500,000 dedicated to this.
that's correct.
So citizens ought to see what the objective is here. We're way short of the monies we actually need.
Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
I don't have a question, but again, what I said earlier in the budget committee meeting, that I want Reed Road from 182 to Hospital Road, somewhere I want it brought up on the list, because I think we need to look at it. From 182 to Hospital Road.
Yes, ma'am.
That's the section of
All
Reed
right.
Road that
We'll take a look
I'm
at
very
it.
concerned about.
All right.
Thank you, Ed.
That was it from a prepared standpoint, from the public hearing, and I guess you just open it up at this point, Mr. Mayor, is that?
That'd be fine. Do we have any citizens' questions or comments that would like to be said at this time? Thank you. Go ahead, come on.
I'm going to try this.
All right. Tell us all who you are so the people.
I'm not
back
near
there-
as organized as Matt, but I'm Milo Burnham from Ward 2, and so that there is no confusion on your part as to where I stand on this, I am here to speak in favor of a tax increase. In fact, of a tax increase from our current millage rate of 16.15 is what I understand of our ad valorem tax on up to the 20 mills, which is permissible without a referendum. I have not liked what I have read in the newspaper about the city budget, nor have I really liked what I have heard here today in the report of the budget that Matt gave and what has come out. We're in a tough situation, as I see it, where the budget is said to be balanced, but this has been done through a reduction in expenditures without any increase in revenue. It is a flat budget. It is not a budget of an expanding and growing city. It is a budget of a city which is beginning to pull in. And it's a budget where, from what I understand and what I've heard and read, we've cut out the fat out of the budget. That's long gone, and we've already gone through robbing Peter to pay Paul. Matt has described this as a lean year mode. I kind of describe it as a situation where you've got a hungry dog and you cut off a piece of its tail and feed it to it. And I don't like the sounds of that. I am speaking in favor of a tax increase, and I know that's a very unpopular thing at this time because the cost of living in Starkville is going up. When you look at, you've already said about gas, and you look at the fact that TVA is going to increase our rates this fall, or so we've been led to believe, from anywhere from 10 to 20%. We're into this $26.5 million school bond issue that has been passed, and I voted for it. But I look at the situation that, and I'm for public education, but for that $54 million budget that the public school system has, for their 62.65 mills at which I'm taxed, I look at it and think, what do I get out of that directly? And I'm proud of our school system, and I'm for public education. But directly, I don't get anything out of it. And then I look at the 16.15 mills that I'm taxed ad valorem for the support of this city. And at least I get police protection and I get fire protection out of it and some other services. I think we need more. We need the 20 mills. We need that additional $654,000 that it will bring in. I don't think we can continue to cut. I don't think that this idea of going to department heads and saying, reduce your operations budget by 1% so that we can balance the budget is going to continue to work. I don't like the fact that city employees, that there's no built-in cost of living increase in this budget. It's costing them more to live as it's costing me more, but I'm willing to go ahead and pay my taxes and pay an increase in taxes. I don't want to see Starkville's agencies that the city support experience reduced support. I don't want to see the museum have reduced support, or the Red Cross, or the animal shelter, or, for that matter, the Greater Starkville Development Partnership, or the community theater, or even go so far as to see that the city will cut its support for parks and recreation and say you can live on the 2% money that you get, and that's going to have to do it. We're in a desperate situation, and I encourage all of you to put aside your concerns about re-election, to put about your other concerns that the money may not remain where it's designated, as such as $1.6 million for capital improvements, which we need. I don't know how much longer. Mr. Mayor, you said yourself we'll be driving on gravel, and we're fast getting there. We've got to get out of a patch-it mode and get into a fix-it mode, if anything. And even fix-it is not a growth mode. So, I'm sorry I'm so excited or, wired up on this thing, but please consider, propose, vote for, push for, put through the tax increase to give this city some money so that you can do something to help the citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. I might mention that the board has the authority to raise taxes to 20 mills without a vote from the citizens.
That's right. That's what I want.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak for or against it?
Good evening. I'm Dorothy Isaac, and Roy Perkins is my alderman. And to the board, to each and every one of you that may be out in the audience, the gentleman that just spoke, maybe he's rich, but I'm not. And I would just like to say, I will not, and I hope you won't, take this and put it on the citizens like that. We have the cost of living every day, and the cost of living is going up. Taxes, taxes, taxes. We're taxed here and we're taxed there. So I'm asking each and every one of you to see in favor of the people that are paying their bills now. They don't have anything to pay extra on different things. Now, like, if you get about 10 more like him who's really rich, maybe you could raise, his taxes a little. But I am not in favor of raising taxes. Thank you.
Richard?
When was the last time that ad valorem taxes were raised in the city?
20 years ago?
20-something years ago.
It's been
The
before
Board
my
of
time.
Alderman has been remiss all those years of not raising taxes.
Basically, and if you'll notice in the paper where the county is short funded too, and they're gonna go up 2 mills, and nobody's been up there to protest.
Everybody got the tax bill last year, they thought, oh my gosh, the city got up again, the city didn't even want to send it.
That's right.
So, the city did not raise their taxes in, what'd you say, 16 years?
20 years, I
20
think.
years. And I think it shows. If you want to pay taxes, move to a real tax and see what kind of taxes you pay. You'll pay a lot of taxes. So I think you're remiss of not having already raised taxes, so I would go ahead, in my opinion, go ahead and raise them now.
Thank you. Anyone else? Call this hearing to a close. We'll move on. The second public hearing on the repeal and replacement of the no smoking ordinance. If no one here to say anything, what? I call the second public hearing to the no smoking ordinance closed. We'll move on. Did you want to make your motion, Rod?
I can. I move that we accept the no smoking ordinance as printed at this time.
I'll second.
Have a motion second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay.
Mayor, maybe Ronnie, can you, I've had several people, when they keep reading that we're repealing the no smoking ordinance. Can you just describe
sure.
what we've done, if you don't mind?
Okay, all we did is add the, all of the airport property that is fenced inside the airport. That is all around the aircraft, all out in the fields and everything. Some people get off airplanes and they just walk up and they're smoking. There's jet fuel at 100 low lead out there. We don't need to get put on the news due to an explosion. And we've got a brand new fuel farm out there, 24/7, that's available for anybody that's got a credit card that's got an N number on an aircraft. So all we're trying to do is protect the airport with no smoking inside the fenced area. That's the only change we made to the smoking ordinance.
All those in, did we just vote?
We already voted.
Yes,
We'll move on to the second public hearing, the repeal and replacement of the stormwater control ordinance. I'd like to reemphasize that we will not vote on this issue this evening, but we have tabled that. Are there folks here tonight that would like to speak yea or nay in regard to this stormwater ordinance? If you'd like to come up and speak.
Mr. Mayor, I just request a point of clarification or information by Mike. Has there been a decision made as to when that ordinance would be considered for a vote, or is that simply a case where I need to read the paper?
We're not going to vote tonight. We don't know when.
Fair enough.
Okay, is that reasonable?
I hope so.
It'll be in the papers.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak in regard to the stormwater? Yes.
Part of the reason for postponing the actual vote on stormwater was the understanding that we would be receiving quite a number of comments tonight from individuals relative to that, and that additional work might need to be done on the ordinance. I'm a little puzzled at no comments.
Yes.
Just to address that point, I was here to comment, but only to ask for additional time so that additional information could be gathered and presented.
So you
there
got
are
that,
interested
yeah.
parties, but having been granted the time, I think I'll be quiet and let you move on.
Very good. I call the second public hearing on the bill in place of the stormwater ordinance closed. We'll move on to the mayor's business, which I think I have blocked out here, but Richard asked for it to be put on there. Go ahead, Richard.
Well, the reason I'd asked was it seemed like an interesting policy, and I wanted to have a little bit of a discussion on it and see if there were any concerns about it. We don't have to approve it tonight, but it's something that we may at least want to come look at it again in the future. This came from the mayor's office. Did you write this, Dan, or was this?
Oh, yeah, I write all this stuff, don't you know?
Richard, as a suggestion, why don't you ask Ms. Spruill to explain the policy and so forth?
Ms. Spruill, do you want to talk some about what
Can you
the
just
reason
stand up right
behind
there
it?
and speak?
I'd be happy to do that, Mayor. Actually, I was inspired by something Alderman McLaurin said at the last board meeting, because we've been holding public hearings on amendments and on new ordinances. And he indicated to me, kind of as an offhand remark, that we don't have to do that. And I was surprised, so I researched it. I asked Ms. Outlaw why we were doing it, and we didn't have to do it, because I could find nothing in the state law that said that we did. And she said she didn't know, and she called Ms. Collier, and Ms. Collier said, we've just been doing it for as long as she remembered. So having been in the policy, or having actually used that as a policy without anyone knowing why, I thought that it was an excellent policy, and that, you know, the open government is better than doing things and then people finding out for the 30 days that it's posted later that this is what's going on. So essentially, any amendment and any ordinance that is proposed is established for 2 public hearings. A first public hearing, a second public hearing, with the second one will be on the agenda as it was tonight, for example, within the smoke notice for passage at that point in time. And there are some other state law elements to it that I incorporated into the policy to include where we want to post for the 30 days as required by state law, which is referenced in the policy. Specifically, we have a glass case out in the lobby that is posting for 30 days. The library has agreed to post for 30 days as required, and the electric department has agreed to post has agreed to post in their lobby for 30 days. There's a requirement that we have 3 areas, and then we're going to have them on the website. So that is in accordance with state law. But specifically, we had no guidance for anyone. We were just doing it because we've done it, and that doesn't strike me as a good way for us to go forward. And, you know, when the board turns over, or when the staff turns over, and the same question asks, why are we doing that, then we have a reason that we can say we're doing this because we established this policy to do it. So essentially, that was it.
I didn't know until I had looked at this that there was no legal requirement to have public hearings on the ordinances, and I think
And I
that's
confirm
certainly.
that Mr. Faber, who has looked at the policy, I think blessed it.
Of course, to take all that a step further as to why the city was doing it, because we thought it was the appropriate thing to do for major things, to hold certain public hearings, not necessarily limit us to 2 or 1 or something, whatever we thought was appropriate, because we too believe in open government and had been doing that routinely for years. I still would like to hold on consideration of adoption of this policy till a subsequent meeting.
Any other discussion? We'll move on. The next item is consideration of amendment to the city travel policy and its formal inclusion into the personnel policy manual. Basically, this is a policy to allow, for example, Ben, I use you as the example. Ben, if you'll notice on there, we gave consent to go to a professional meeting in Jackson for several days for his certification of planning, which is about 4 days. His father lives in the vicinity. And in lieu of staying in a hotel, our policy does not allow him to travel another 30 miles to and from where he would spend the night and get that credit for gasoline. But it does allow him to stay in the hotel. But we do not allow to go to travel an additional 30 miles, thus saving the hotel expense, but giving him the travel mileage. I believe that's what it.
The passage of time. We have shared your joy at the birth of your children, and proudly we have watched them grow. We've taken care of your healthcare needs during the good times and the not so good. Your parents and grandparents have depended upon us. Together we have shared the struggles and the wonders of life. At Oktibbeha County Hospital, we are celebrating 30 years of being your lifelong choice in healthcare.
presently the keeper of the travel policy in our policies. Who?
Ms. Outlaw?
Okay. I would like to see a copy of existing travel policy. In hearing this discussion, I'm beginning to get the impression that the city's travel policy deviates fairly substantially from that required by state law for most state agencies and so forth. Would simply like to see an up-to-date copy.
Okay, let me clarify one thing. Our travel policy did not address anything other than the pre-approval elements. It was a very brief policy. That was mostly what we had done, and we passed that last year, the year before last. I'm sorry, I should pull that. But we didn't discuss anything having to do with the mileage or the cost or that sort of thing. It was just whether or not the mayor could approve it, the board had to approve.
And I remember that discussion, and that, of course, is what is reproduced here in a large part. I'm trying to get at what is the existing city travel policy on reimbursement and so forth.
The state's policy. We follow the state's policy.
With on state policy, as you mentioned earlier, there's no reason to even put this in.
And certainly not to argue that point, Ms. Outlaw, here at this particular meeting. We need to take a look at some things, I think. I'm puzzled by, for example, the need to even add this tonight because state policy, in effect, allows such a thing already. Let's not get into it. Let's take a look at the policy and so forth.
Want to do it tonight, you want to do it later?
I want to do it later because I want to read what we've got. There's nothing wrong with granting Ms. Griffith authorization, if people think that needs to be done tonight, to cover that.
When do you leave, Ben?
It's in October.
Oh, well, we got plenty of time to get it done, or otherwise we'll give you permission. Is that permissible with the board that we take a look at this? Okay, we'll move on.
So again, to be sure I understand this, we're saying that we have no written travel policy other than these things about approval and pre-approval and all that type of thing, and that it's our thought that we follow the state law, the requirements, the state travel policy. Is that correct? Am I understanding that correctly? Okay, thank you.
Take a look at this. We'll move on. Ed, you got us an update on the election department? Where are you? Well, we're going to put this thing out for bids.
Monday, September 8th.
September the 8th. Mr. Perkins calls me every week, wants to know.
I've got Mr. Cosper here to bring you up, bring the board up to with the information as to how far along we are and what we're projecting it'll be before we actually start construction. So
We got some I's to dot and T's to cross, and if everything goes exactly right, which I'm hopeful about, we will do the following things in this order. On Wednesday, August the 27th, we're going to submit the site design to the city for review. Therefore, we hope to have the site plan review on the following Thursday, September the 4th. Assuming that that goes smoothly, we will advertise the bid on Monday, September the 8th, and the following Monday, September the 15th. That'll give us our two advertisements. We will then open bids on Tuesday, October the 14th. Now, if you look at the calendar, you can do it a little quicker than that. I cannot. I have an engagement out of town that previous week, and I need to be in town during that last week of the bid process. There's some things you can do over the phone. There's other things that need personal attention, and I'll have to be here. There's a couple weeks of wiggle room in this schedule in case some things don't fall exactly as they should. But long story short, we were very close to putting this on the market. I think it's an excellent time to be on our local construction market. We don't need to go any later than the 14th of October. We're starting to get into late fall. We need to give the contractor the opportunity to have the foundation in before winter sets in and it gets wetter and colder. But that's where we stand. The project looks like what you've
seen it all along, except a little more detailed at this point.
Any questions? Roy, you got any questions?
No, sir, Mr. Mayor, thank you. So just to confirm, groundbreaking when and ribbon cutting when?
All right, we're going to open bids October 14th. Now, one of two things happens on that day. Everybody's happy, or everybody's some degree of unhappy, depending on how those bids come in. So what we probably ought to do is tentatively plan those dates a week or so after the bid opening, see how the bids go, and then go from that point.
So talking about this fall, when we get started
That's
with
correct.
construction, when would the building be open? Construction estimate.
Goodness, that's a great, I believe I have a 10-month construction schedule on it, which I think we want to hold that as short as we can because we want the building, but we don't want to pay a cost penalty to accelerate construction. We want it to be as short as possible without pushing the contractor into overtime or extraordinary measures or that sort of thing. I think 9 months, thereabouts. We've already performed, as you know, the site demolition work, which has done a couple of things. One, it's cleaned up the site, and that's good from a bid standpoint. The contractors, there's less hidden conditions. The other thing is it will accelerate the construction schedule because there's no demolition essentially to do, very little on the site.
I think we definitely want to be before opening day. You know, at the university, we have so many new people in the community, and this would be a good thing to have open.
We'll certainly look at that.
And I believe you're doing this to lead certifications? Is
Yes,
that correct?
and I'm glad you brought that up. We've been moving along with that. It's been a very interesting process, but we're going forward with it and doing our darndest to make it work.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This brings us back to the item concerning the balcony that Richard asked to be put back on the agenda. I might mention that I had it taken off the agenda because I was told this morning that it did not go through the processes that we go through in our city for approval. Is that not right, Mr. Griffin?
There's what will probably be a final development review committee meeting scheduled for this Thursday.
For this Thursday. And so I asked Ms. Brule to have it removed. I feel like that we need to have all of our citizens to go through the proper procedures, have these particular items approved. I'm not opposed to it. I think it's a neat idea to begin to say this particular type of development in the city. With that well said, we will now take this process up.
Mr. Kelly, would you, please come forward. You were the one that presented this, correct?
Correct.
And you've met with the design review committee once already, and you just had to flesh out a few things relative to the balcony.
Correct, on July 31st, and I believe, it's just better I can, but I believe Mr. Hadaway solved that final issue for us today, and there, to my knowledge, there are no outstanding issues. But we are seeking final approval on Thursday morning and are only asking the board to approve this matter contingent upon their final approval. And Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, Board of Alderman, I appreciate y'all agreeing to hear this matter tonight. My name is Brian Kelly. I'm here on behalf of Restaurant Tyler. And as you all know, we've got a proposed balcony that we would like to put up on the restaurant to be used for outdoor dining. With the help of Mr. Springer's engineering firm, I think we're going to try to make this the most attractive balcony in Starkville and something that the city can be proud of. And to be used for outdoor dining. With that, I'll just leave it to any questions y'all may have regarding those plans that you all received.
Questions from board members? I'm a little curious about that light fixture going from the city light going up through the canopy.
That was the one remaining issue that Mr. Hadaway resolved.
Unless the board has any questions, I had a chance to look at it. It looks great, and as long as it meets our requirements from building standpoint, then I applaud you for it. And I would move approval of the request contingent upon final approval from our design review committee and authorize the mayor to sign any appropriate easements or hold harmless agreement.
sorry, normally the mayor says, Arthur, we have a motion. Anyway, I'll be
We have
happy
a
to.
motion.
Second.
All right, we have a motion with a second. All those in favor of the motion, raise your hands. You want to
May I
discuss?
ask a question before we
Sure.
vote? Are there any outstanding issues that have not been settled that will be easily dealt with at the Design Review Committee meeting on Thursday?
I don't think there was. The largest hurdle was about the street lighting from the first development committee meeting.
And Ed, you consider that a settled matter?
We have, I would like to wait for that.
I'm sorry, say that again.
I would like to be able to have, the Thursday meeting to be able to, firm up, what I'm thinking we can do, and that's, remove the light, just depends on the way the wire, down in the base of the light is.
And so that would have to be settled before Design Review Committee would give their final approval of the project. Any other outstanding issues?
Most of the ones that I've received so far, because the deadline was this afternoon, of course, I usually get some straggling comments first thing in the morning. Most of them seem to be minor, and like I said, really nothing that we can't resolve on Thursday morning, compared to what we had on the first one.
Okay. So, there appear to be no major outstanding issues of any sort. Even if there are, they still have got to receive approval and be tended to by the Design Review Committee. Okay.
The only issue is that the board should be realized that the easement that they're requesting is gonna be 29 feet by 11 feet. 29 feet long, 11 feet wide. That's what their engineer told me today. So that's what you're granting them by this approval.
So you're kind of getting the cart before the horse here, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, let's talk a little bit about this easement.
Well, that's what I thought the Design Review Committee is supposed to do, is not Ben? On this Thursday, this easement, and other issues as such like this?
Well, that was one of the issues from the first review is I believe it extended out 14 feet, which would have,
But I thought that was corrected, that was moved back to 9 feet 9 inches, is that correct?
They asked for 11 feet today, is what the engineer told me. 29 feet long, 11 feet wide.
And what size was submitted on the first time?
just a little over 14.
So what we're approving tonight is something that we can't make a decision on in regard to what we have department heads set up to look at.
All I'm making a comment on, Mayor, is the fact I want the board to be aware of the size of what the
I understand.
easement
I understand that.
is that they requested. The comparison one at Mookshot's 6.4 feet.
Yeah. How big is theirs?
6.4 feet.
But they only have room for tables on one side.
Well, there's not as much sidewalk over there as there is on this side.
I think the Doe State Theater is significantly bigger, if I'm not mistaken.
How big is it?
I don't know the exact number.
See, whatever is built there is gonna set the precedence for everything else that people may want to put balconies. So you gotta get it right to start with. Or we're gonna be facing issues where they're not done right or they're asking for other issues here. And I personally felt like it was a little hasty here in regard to getting these little details worked out.
Well, I think the issue as far as the width and length was resolved in accordance with what the DRC committee wanted.
Ben, did you have any concerns over the easements that were being requested for this?
No, it matches up with the dimensions that have been provided on the revised plan that's going to be reviewed on Thursday. The city attorney's already drafted an easement, which I have, which utilizes the legal description. And the first sentence is 29 foot long by 11 foot wide easement. It's sidewalk.
And Mr. Faber, an easement lasting how long?
Perpetual,
Perpetual.
non-exclusive. It runs, it's a covenant that runs with the property long, no matter who owns it.
It's the same thing. Is this really in any way different from what we did or what was done with State Theater, Ben? Ben, is there any way that this is different from what was done at State Theater with their balcony? Other than, I guess, a slight size difference.
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, do we have any other questions? We have a motion and a second. You want to say something, Edward?
Well, I'm just gonna say that we could up to, that first width without the edge of the curve.
Right.
Which is, like some of the other balconies in town, which, with the state theater, we got around that balcony, it's out to the edge of the curve, you got that sidewalk in the middle. Now, that looked to be a little bit too wide because where the foundation needs to go, would require an overhang. And so we got that back, to the distance that's now showing 10 feet, maybe 10 feet 6. But that includes a little drip line for the balcony, so,
With the drip line, it's 10'6".
yeah.
But I think the actual balcony is only like 9'9", 9'6", something like that.
It's right there for you. But the foundation will fit where we got it, it looks all right.
Ms. Faber, you said the easement measurements were.
They told me, his office told me 29 by 11.
And those dimensions that Mr. Springer was talking about is what DRC had asked us to bring it back to.
So you brought it back further?
We brought it more closer to the building,
Right.
which is what DRC had asked us to do.
Instead of 11, 10-6.
Right.
No, it was 14.
Instead of 14.
They brought it back to.
Brought it back
Yeah,
to
brought it back
9'6" with overhang of about 4, 5, 6 inches, a little over 10 feet. So we have a motion and a second. We'll vote again. All those in favor, raise your hands. All those opposed? It passes.
Thank you.
We'll move on. No, I'm gonna run you through the same. Why not? What are you gonna do if anybody else wants to come up here, can't follow the rules, or does the same? Well, maybe it's not.
But do we?
You'll always ask my question.
About that later.
All right, Ben.
Thank you, Mayor. We're going to skip the first Planning and Zoning Commission item. The second item is item FP08-10, which is a request by Starkville Pediatric Clinic PLLC for a preliminary final subdivision plat approval of Starkville Pediatric Clinic subdivision in a C1 neighborhood commercial zoning district. Subject property is located at 200 Hospital Road, number 5, Professional Plaza, which is on the north side of Hospital Road, west of North Jackson Street in Ward 5. The single lot subdivision plat consists of approximately 1.19 acres. Property has not been properly subdivided, and this is a requirement for the development to occur. The city will provide potable water, but the sanitary sewer system is private. Access to Hospital Road is via a separately owned private road, which the city has received a perpetual, non-exclusive ingress-egress easement as specified by the city attorney. The Planning and Zoning Commission voted unanimously to recommend approval of the final subdivision plat with 5 conditions proposed by city staff.
Board questions?
If there aren't any questions, I'd move approval of the preliminary and final plat for the Starkville Pediatric Clinic subdivision with the standard 5 conditions.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Next item, Ben.
The next item is item FP08-11, which is a request by Riverbend Land and Development LLC for a preliminary final subdivision plat approval of Cotton Quarters condo plat in an R5 multifamily high-density zoning district. The subject property is located at 36 Jarnigan Street, north of Russell Street, adjacent to the Oddfellows Cemetery at the western edge of the Cotton District in Ward 4. The condo plat consists of 2 buildings with 6 units each on an approximate 0.42 acre site. The property was rezoned from C2 to R5 in March of last year. A site plan approval was in September of last year. All public utilities have been provided to the site. The condominium documents include the standard hold harmless indemnification clause required by the city attorney. Planning and Zoning Commission unanimously recommended approval of the final condo plat with 5 conditions proposed by city staff.
Mayor and Board, move approval of the plat provided for 36 Jarnigan Street with the recommendations by staff.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Next item, Ben.
Mr. Mayor, the next item is item FP08-12, which is a request by Jenner Collins for a preliminary final subdivision plat approval of Collins subdivision in an R2 single-family duplex zoning district. The subject property is located at 619 Greensboro Street on the south side, just east of the intersection of Reed Road in Ward 1. The plat consists of 2 lots, one with an existing residence and a tract at the rear, totaling approximately 0.89 acres. The applicant wishes to sell Lot 2 to a local builder who intends to build a new home on the site. Tract 1 is not a buildable lot, and this has been noted on the plat. All utilities are currently provided to the site, and Greensboro Street provides public access. The Planning and Zoning Commission unanimously recommended approval of the final subdivision plat with 5 conditions proposed by city staff.
We have a motion.
Move approval with the requisite recommendations from staff included in my motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Next item.
Mr. Mayor, the last item is item PP08-04, which is a request by Greenway, Inc. for a preliminary plat approval of Box Avenue development in an R4 zero-lot line cluster development zoning district. The subject property is located at 1208 Louisville Street, southwest of the intersection of Academy Road, immediately south of the Lutheran Church in Ward 2. The property was rezoned from C1 to R5 this past June. The plat consists of 25 single-family residential lots on approximately 2.44 acres of land. The R4 zoning is classified as high-density residential, which allows up to 15 dwelling units per acre. The proposed density calculation for the site would be approximately 10.66 dwelling units per acre. The proposed preliminary plat meets all the requirements for the R4 zoning district. Planning and Zoning Commission unanimously recommended approval of the preliminary plat with 3 conditions proposed by city staff.
Do we have a motion?
We have a motion with staff recommendations 1, 2, and 3.
We have a second.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Thank you, Ben.
Yes, sir.
Nay.
You said nay, 1 nay.
Yes, sir. Is there a private road on it? I think.
It is a private road, or it will be a private road.
5-2.
2 nays.
2 nays.
Office City Clerk.
That's all there is. I get you.
The item I have is going to be the claims, the request approval of the claims docket through August 14 through 2008.
Do you have approval of claims docket?
Marquita, any of the park and rec that's listed within the claims docket is just limited to 2%.
That's their 2% or their bond payments.
You spent all this money just in 1 month.
Well, actually, in 2 weeks.
Mayor and Board, move approval of the claims docket.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion, we approve claims docket. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay.
Nay.
Approved. Thank you, Ms. Marquita.
Thank you.
Brings us down to executive session. Do I hear a motion that we go into closed session? Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Ms. Mayor and Board, I would move approval of those items transferred to the consent agenda, which I'll be happy to enumerate again if you would like.
Please don't.
I thought you-
And I'll second.
We have a motion that we approve consent agendas. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. It brings us to the executive session. We need to go into a discussion to discuss the items on executive session. It'll be pending litigation, personnel, land acquisition, and potential litigation. Do I hear a motion we go into closed session?
So moved.